Hi there. Welcome to Spice Club, sponsored by the Madison County Public Library. I'm Kim Bellafato, and today we're going to be talking about ginger. Now, ginger is kind of an interesting spice. It comes in many different forms. You'll find it powdered. You'll find it fresh. If you find it in the produce department, it most often looks like a root. But it actually is not a root. It's a stem that grows, it has its own roots. But you peel the dark coloring off of it and can chop it up and put it directly into any dish. It's often candied. If people choose to have dried fruit that they add to fruit cake, not my thing, but might be yours. Candied ginger tastes pretty good in that as well. And if you are a sushi eater, that cute little pink stuff that they put next to your sushi is pickled ginger. So you see it shows up in a variety of different cuisines. It pairs well with vegetables and meat. I like it with chicken. We're going to talk about that today. It also works really well with fruits. I put a little bit in my pumpkin pie. I like the little citrusy bite that it has. It's a strong flavor. A little goes a long way. We're going to be working with dried ginger today. And you use a little less of that than you do with the fresh product. In most spices, you'll see that a fresh product, you might use a tablespoon of that, and you might only use half a teaspoon of a dried product. So you want to just make sure that you don't go overboard as you're learning the spice. So I'm going to real quick walk you through our ingredients. What we're making today is a Thai chicken pasta and Thai from Thailand. And so it's an interesting combination of flavors. Now, the first time I made it, I really had to kind of take it on faith. As I mixed these things up, I thought, I am not sure that these items should go together. But this is actually one of our favorite weeknight meals. And it's very quick to put together. And you'll see that here. The only thing I really did in advance before we got together today is I have pre-cooked a pound of spaghetti. And that was just to save time as we're together, to not have you watching me boil water and boil pasta. So this is just boiled like a regular pasta. I have it here in the bowl. I tend to break the pieces a little bit just to have them not be long spaghetti pieces. And I usually choose to get the thinnest pasta that I can find. If you prefer to be gluten-free, you could do a rice noodle very easily. That cooks up super quick. Just make sure you don't overcook it, because those tend to turn kind of gelatinous if you overcook it in a way that wheat pastas don't. The other thing that I have here is I have some rotisserie chicken. And if you have not discovered that that is the world's fastest shortcut to a weeknight meal, let me tell you, it's money well spent. Usually in my family, we can take a whole chicken, chop it up like this, and get 2 different meals out of it. So I have about 2 cups of chicken here that I've just cut from the rotisserie chicken. I have some julienne carrots. I'm going to admit to a shortcut. I don't usually do that. I usually chop it up, but I went ahead and grabbed the julienne ones. Quite a bit of green onions. And then I have a Napa cabbage. Now, Napa cabbage, I saved the end of it to show you. It looks a little bit different from what you're used to seeing for a regular cabbage. It's always green. You know, when you look at the inside of it, very similar to a lettuce, but it has this kind of oblong shape to it. And you use about 2 cups in this recipe. And again, the first time I made it, I looked and I was like, that is a ton of cabbage. It's going to be more cabbage than pasta. But like most leaf vegetables, it tends to break down once you get cooking. And so you'll see that that's happened. I have our ginger. This is the star of the show today. I have fresh ginger just here as an illustration to show you that you can buy that in a quick form as well. Other ingredients that we're going to put into our sauce once we get to it, I have unseasoned rice vinegar. That's an Asian style vinegar, but they have it with some seasoning and without. I try and get the unseasoned. Soy sauce, you can't make an Asian dish without that. Minced garlic, I did a little shortcut. If you have fresh, that works just as easily. Sesame oil, which will be the first thing that we're going to use today. And I'm going to say to you, sesame oil is important. You might find yourself tempted to say, let me just use the olive oil or the canola oil that I have at home. And you could, but this gives a really special flavor to this whole dish. And I think you'll like it. Honey goes into this, and peanut butter. Now, the recipe calls for creamy peanut butter. I like crunchy. I like a little bit of a crunch of the nut in there, but either one works. So I would just say use what you have at home. And one of the things that I like about this dish is most of these items are readily available at home. Other than I might buy rice vinegar once and it tastes great on salad, so I always use it. I'm able to use these up on a regular basis. So the very first thing that we're going to do, just to keep the pasta from sticking to itself, is I'm going to put about 2 tablespoons of the sesame oil in there. And I'm just going to drizzle it lightly over the pasta and give it a quick toss with the tongs. And that's just so that it's sitting there happy waiting for us until we're ready to put it on the stove. So already wanting to stick together just a little bit, but a little toss helps kind of take care of that. Now we're going to move over to the stove pretty quickly. That we're going to cook up our vegetables first, also in a little bit of the sesame oil. And then we're going to mix up our sauce, add it to the vegetables. Getting crazy over here. And then toss all of it together. So this is a really, like I said, quick weeknight meal that you do a little saute of the vegetables, you put all the sauce parts in there, add the chicken, add the pasta, toss the whole thing together, and you're good to go right out to the table. So I'm going to move this over to the stove real quick and let you watch me. So be right back. All right, so we've relocated by the stove. I've got kind of a deep frying pan here that I'm going to use to mix everything up in, and you need a big pan. You could have opted to use the same pot that you boiled the pasta in. No shame in that. Only wash once. So I'm going to add about a tablespoon of that same sesame oil that we used because we're going to cook the vegetables in it next. So I'm going to go ahead and add those crunchy vegetables. I'm going to put all that cabbage in there that I have. Put my carrots in. I always start with the vegetables that are a little crunchy that are going to take a little longer to soften. Give those a quick mix in there. Nice little bright spot of color. Then I'm going to add in some of the green onions. Now, you chop quite a bit of green onion for this. I'm going to put most of it in there, but I'm going to save just a little bit for garnish. Kind of cute to sprinkle it on top, but I try and make sure I get most of those white ones in there because they have that little oniony bite on top. Give that a little stir as well. Almost looks like I have salad in a pot when I look at it. All right, I'm going to add our garlic next. There we go. 5 cloves of garlic. Because I have this pre-mix, I'm going to actually use my teaspoon, and I treat 1 teaspoon as a clove each time. Now, with an Italian last name like mine, you know that I probably think you can never have too much garlic, but we don't want to go crazy here and have it overpower. But garlic and ginger are like best friends. They taste delicious when you have them together. All right, so I've got a little garlic in there. And again, you're just doing all of those vegetables first, just enough to kind of get things softened up. As soon as it starts to soften, I'm going to actually go ahead and throw the chicken in there. Because I bought a rotisserie chicken, it was cold, and so my meat is going to need a little bit of a heat up. But I was trying to give that cabbage just a little jump start on the rest. The ginger is going to go in when we get to our spice time. And I'm going to tell you that one of the things when you use a dry spice is you don't measure it out over the pot. That the steam is actually, you don't want that inside your spice jar. So you're going to always scoop it out, even if it's into your hand, and then put it in there. We don't shake a spice over a dish. It's tempting. When I'm making chili and I decide I need just a little more chili powder, a little more cumin, I find myself tempted to just shake it straight into the pot. And I have to remind myself that moisture and spices are not friends with one another. So I'm going to go ahead and do the recipe that I gave you called for, I believe, a tablespoon of fresh ginger. I'm going to use just not even quite a teaspoon to replace that because I'm using the dried product. Like I said, you can substitute one for the other. In certain dishes, it makes a difference, but for something like this where we're making a sauce, you can use the dried just as easily. Give that a little toss. And already, I'm going to tip my pan up so you can see. If you were thinking to yourself, it looked like a lot of cabbage that I threw in there. Look at that.
It's already kind of shrunk down a little bit. And as I add that chicken in there, it's going to shrink even further. It creates a little steam. So I've got my chicken, and in it goes straight in the pot. Like I said, I just used basic rotisserie chicken from the grocery store. The smells are starting to smell really nice. That ginger and garlic together really makes for a nice aroma. So, while I'm measuring my sauce ingredients out, I'm just letting that chicken have the opportunity to warm all the way through. Don't quite have a camera up above, but we're going to do what we can. All right. Let's sort of spread that out somewhat evenly in my pan. And I still have enough room in this pan that when it comes time to put the spaghetti in there, I'm not going to have a big sloppy mess. That's the thing I'm going to avoid. Most of them just require a quarter of a cup. The first thing I'm going to put in is a quarter cup of honey. Give it a good pour. I do pour that over the pot so I'm not messy. Pour that in over that. I have a teaspoon here just to scrape and make sure I get all the little bits of that in there. And I just sort of put it right on top. I'll do a good mix of the sauce once all of the parts are in there. All right, got my sticky mess going on here with my food. All right, put that to the side. Now I'm going to do a quarter cup of peanut butter. And I do try and do these things in order because I don't object if I end up with just a little bit of honey in my peanut butter container. Let's see. No, it's not going to let me do it. I'll have to scoop it correctly. So for those of you who are used to thinking of peanut butter and jelly and things like that as the only use of peanut butter, and you're thinking, I don't think peanut butter chicken sounds wonderful. Peanut butter is actually a prime ingredient in a lot of Thai cuisines, and it develops a totally different taste when you do that compared to what you're thinking of for your peanut butter. So it's there on top. I'm going to go ahead and give that a quick little stir with my finger there. So that the little blob of peanut butter, you can see kind of right down the middle. I'm putting it toward the center just so it can start to soften a little bit while I measure out my soy sauce. I'm going to do a quarter cup of soy sauce next. And that kind of gets everything happy. Need a little bit of liquid for everything to wiggle around in. Again, I'm going to give that just a quick little bit of movement just to try and get that peanut butter softening up and incorporated with the other ingredients. There we go. I wish you could smell it. It smells wonderful. All right. So next I'm going to add in the seasoned rice vinegar that I told you about. And so it has just kind of a nice bright taste. And I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of that. One. A little extra splash, but that won't hurt. Now, if you like spicy, which in my house we tend to like that pretty well, you could do a little dash of a sriracha or a chili sauce into this. And I would do it right at this point, so it kind of gets incorporated in as part of the sauce. Not necessary. You can also sprinkle a little red pepper flake over it when you're ready to serve. That would also kind of have that nice effect. So now with these little bits of liquids in here and the little bit that the cabbage releases, you can see I just kind of have a nice vegetable sauce combination that's going on. And the next thing I do, I just toss the pasta in there. Just try and do it as tidy as I can. Like I said, I try to break the noodles up a little bit so that they're not, foot-long spaghetti noodles. These tossed in there. Always try and eyeball about what looks like it makes sense for the quantity of meat. And I like the sauce. A little extra sauce goes a long way for me too. I'm going to toss this around. We're just mixing the spaghetti in and incorporating it in with the chicken and the vegetables. Trying to get a good coating on that sauce if you can. If ever you decided it was not quite enough, You're looking at it and you're thinking, this looks like it needs a little more something. You could double the sauce very easily and add the additional ingredients right on top of all of this. Again, because it all mixes in really nicely. So let me show you what we got going on here. Looks like everything is pretty well incorporated. And so kind of right here, where you're able to see the spaghetti and the vegetables, the chicken are all together. And when I serve this, typically I would serve this with a green salad, slicing cucumbers and then putting that in a little of that same rice wine vinegar, a little salt and pepper. Tastes really good along with it. But I hope that your family enjoys it. It's a different way to use some common ingredients at your house and make up something super tasty. So give it a try and let me know what you think. I'll post a picture at the end so you can see what the finished product looks like. But I hope you enjoyed our production and you have a great rest of your day. Thank you.